Batman. The Caped Crusader, The Dark Knight, the world's greatest detective, other fancy titles. Everyone likes Batman. Don't lie to me, you clicked on this video. But that doesn't mean everyone loves every version of Batman. There are some pretty wacky versions of the character.
Why did you say that name?
When you've been around as long as he has, there's gonna be some fuck-ups along the way. Sometimes it's the art style, sometimes it's the plot or tone.
You wouldn't hit a lady, would you?
The hammer of justice is unisex.
And sometimes, most of the time, it's because they messed up the characterization. Today, I'm going to present you all with my ideal Batman. Cards on the table, I haven't read a single Batman comic. My comic knowledge is mostly taken up by Spider-Man.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
My knowledge of Batman mostly comes from animated TV shows and movies. However, comic books have always and will always be a niche medium. Comics are messy. They're inconsistent, they're constantly changing the reins, and you can bet dollars to donuts that nothing printed now will matter in 6 months. However, I love movies and TV shows based on comic books. Spectacular Spider-Man, X-Men Evolution, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes are some of my favorites. The thing that makes these shows work is that they're based off the comics, but they're free to manipulate them to fit into a new narrative. And most importantly, the characters are accurate. Now you'll note that I just said comic books are inconsistent. This is a fact. Then how can a character be accurate if comic books are constantly changing characterizations, backstories, and relationships? Vibes, baby. There are certain truths in fictional characters. Spider-Man has, with great power comes great responsibility. This is a factor that has never left his character. It's why we'll never accept a version of Peter who doesn't care about the suffering of others. He'll always act because he feels that he has to, no matter the consequences to himself.
Isn't this video supposed to be about Batman?
Shut up, I'm getting to him. Batman has core principles he believes in as well. I'll be using these core principles as a measuring stick to determine the best version of Batman and the Bat Fam and present to you my ideal Bat Show concept. Now the Bat Fam is vast, but I won't be touching every possible member, just the important ones. Also some villains and supporting characters, just for fun. I'll be using existing iterations of characters to make this easy, but not every character has an ideal version that I've seen, so I'll be doing some fusions along the way to make them ideal.
As thrilling as it was watching you work, sir, from here on out I shall leave the sleuthing to you.
Alfred was incredibly easy to pick. Alfred is a surrogate father figure who will stay by Bruce's side no matter what. But that doesn't mean Alfred is okay with Bruce being Batman. Alfred understands that Batman is born from Bruce's trauma, a manifestation of his vow to never allow what happened to him happen to anyone else. Alfred understands that, and in some small ways supports Bruce's ideals. However, his loyalty is to Bruce Wayne, not Batman.
Sir, I would be more than delighted to encourage you to hang up the cape and cowl out of concern for your general health and welfare. But you would only hold it against me once your fever broke and you came to your senses.
Alfred is the only thing keeping Bruce from fully disappearing into the cowl. He nags Bruce to eat, sleep, shower, go do charitable events, go on dates with women. Not for Bruce's secret identity, but because these are things Bruce would ignore doing so he could be Batman.
Care to chat?
Bravo! Becky responded to your chat request. And by your, I mean my.
Not every version of Alfred does this. Hell, he isn't even in every show. Alfred has an element of being the Watson to Bruce's Sherlock, but that's not the reason he's here. In Batman Beyond, we see an old Bruce Wayne. He can no longer be Batman physically, and without Alfred, he's lost any sense of being Bruce. Terry gives Bruce new life by allowing him to act through Terry to protect the city. As such, he puts on Bruce Wayne again as a necessary piece of the disguise, but we never really get to see Bruce be Wayne again with Alfred gone. That's why he's important. And the Batman's Alfred does all of this in stride. Also, he's a font of dry wit and sarcasm, and we stand that.
I saw the Batman.
Only a Ming.
Dick is my favorite.
What did he say?
Dick Grayson is my favorite Robin, and Young Justice has my favorite Dick Grayson.
Was there ever any doubt?
Sure, Teen Titans Robin is cool, but in a setting with Batman as a main character, they'd be too similar. Robin being a sassy, quipping, acrobatic menace is a good contrast to Batman's stoicism and precision. Dick is a genius in his own right, takes his secret identity seriously, but is far more trusting of people than Batman is.
A friend, Jack Haley.
The circus guy? From your old Flying Grayson days?
Yeah, he's implicated in this global crime spree. Someone in the show's dirty, but I need to prove old Jack's clean or he might lose the circus.
This version of Dick idolizes Batman, wants to be him, but eventually realizes that becoming Batman is a burden and a curse in some ways. Bruce helped Dick get justice for his parents so he wouldn't become another Batman. Dick doesn't want to become an emotionless weapon against the unending war against crime and corruption. And thanks to Bruce, he won't be. That's why when Dick becomes Nightwing, it's a victory. He's a hero with his head on straight and his heart intact. That's something Bruce can't be. Robin, and later Nightwing, is visible proof that Bruce is making a difference being Batman. Are we going to touch on how irresponsible it is for Bruce to take a 9-year-old with him when he fights serial killers? Nope.
Timber.
Batgirl is... whatever. This isn't a female superhero suck thing. This is mostly coming from the two versions of the character I'm most familiar with. The Batman Batgirl and Batman the Animated Series Batgirl. I mean, she's in Young Justice for a season, but she doesn't really do much thanks to the massive cast. And in Season 3, she's Oracle, so... The Batman's version is a plucky kid who wants to fight crime like her dad, but Daddy says no, so she puts on the mask and joins Batman, who also says no. She kind of just pesters Bruce until he adopts Robin and he finally relents and lets Barbara join his team. Batman Animated Barbara honestly has a much better reason to become Batgirl. Her father's accused of corruption and she asks Batman to show up to a rally for support. But Batman refuses, wanting to focus on proving Gordon's innocence. Barbara pretends to be Batman and does a swing by to generate public support for her father, and things escalate from there. But she becomes Batgirl because she thinks Batman isn't doing anything to help her father? What? He gave Barbara a message from Gordon telling her to stay out of it for her own safety. So she thought she'd just put on a cowl and she could do Batman's job? That has to be the worst way of introducing a superhero sidekick. It's definitely a hallmark of 90s and early 2000s cartoons to shoehorn in annoying kid characters who only ever make things worse or solve problems they create. But Barbara is in college in this show, and she thinks she can take on armed thugs with moxie and a can-do attitude? Girl. Honestly, instead of Batgirl, I think Batwoman is a better fit. I know that's a loaded sentence for some people, but let me explain. A woman who already has background in combat and experiences hardship that brings her down to her lowest point. She dons the cowl as a symbol to herself that she'll never feel powerless again, and defends the innocent who can't defend themselves. That's a much better reason to ape the Bat-sona than Barbara's. Again, only talking about the movies and TV shows, not the comics. I honestly have no idea what the original origin for Batgirl is. I think it could be fun to have Batman, Batwoman, and Robin in a show together. Bruce, the brilliant detective and leader, Robin, the comic relief and hacker, and Batwoman, the brawler and straightforward one with contacts in the underworld. I think that would make for an excellent trio. I guess you could make Barbara Batwoman, but that just seems like a hornet's nest that I'm not willing to poke.
What's on your mind, Commissioner?
I don't think I've ever seen a bad version of Gordon. Granted, I haven't seen every version that exists, but honestly, Jim Gordon is pretty hard to mess up. He's a good man and a good cop. He wants to clean up the cesspool that is Gotham and recognizes that following the letter of the law won't accomplish that. Now, that doesn't mean he's just going to go on a rampage and wage a one-man war against crime. But he will support Batman in his one-man war. You just have to make Jim honest, compassionate, committed, and stubborn, and that's it, really. Are there any bad versions of Jim Gordon? Let me know in the comments.
Detective Ethan Bennett, meet Detective Ellen Yin, formerly of Metropolis PD. Their loss.
Detective Ellen Yin is a really cool character that has only appeared in The Batman as far as I know. She's a police detective who is tasked with unmasking the Bat and bringing him to justice for being a vigilante. Over the course of the first season, she learns that Batman is necessary for Gotham and begins to work with him. Before Commissioner Gordon gets introduced, and Yin is erased from the series entirely except for a one-line reference in Season 3. Bring Yin back, she's a better cop than Bullock. Catwoman is a reoccurring love interest for Bruce, who ranges from neat to annoying. I prefer a version who is into wildlife conservation and steals from rich pricks who hurt animals instead of just being a cat burglar. This way, the plot of episodes doesn't just turn into Catwoman sexy, Batman is dumb because sexy lady. That shit's really annoying. Batman animated Catwoman is mostly like this with a few exceptions, but I don't really like her vibe. She has a much better design in The Batman, but she's just a bitch in that show. I bet you could blend the two together into a fun but feisty thief with a heart of gold.
He's here. Where, Mr. Thorne?
Black Mask, Rupert Thorne, Carmine Falcone. All of these guys would be very cool to have in a show together. Having Gotham have a single godfather of crime makes things too simple for my tastes. Having a turf war can make things more difficult for Batman. That way he has to do more than prove one guy is guilty. If Batman stops the operations of one crime boss, the others gain power, forcing Batman to pick and choose his battles as to not let any one gang get too powerful.
Ladies, gentlemen, you've eaten well. You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe.
That's a great way to keep the plot going without making it feel like the show's just spinning its wheels.
Makeup? Joker don't need no stinking makeup! Smiles, Patsy!
Joker is an important character for Batman. A lot of comics and shows constantly compare the two.
Yet we're linked, you and I, like comedy and tragedy. Two sides, same coin.
In a lot of ways, they represent how we as people respond to trauma. We all have a choice in how trauma affects us. We can learn and grow from it, aspire to be better, and prevent those things from happening to others. Or we can use it as an excuse to burn down the world around us and claim we're only doing what the world has done to us. Joker is crazy. He's a serial killer with a dangerous sense of humor. He hates not being taken seriously, but constantly complains about people not getting his jokes. I honestly like the Batman's version of the Joker best for one simple reason. He's funny.
You have made me one very sad clown! But you go.
I know Mark Hamill's Joker is society's favorite, and there's a reason for that, and a very valid one. The performance is iconic, the laugh is amazing, but he's just missing a little something for me. The Batman's Joker, sometimes called Dreadlock Joker by the internet, is funny, threatening, uses the clown aesthetic to its maximum, and I'm always having a good time even as he's moments away from slapping a permanent smile on Gotham. He intentionally leaves clues for Batman, not because he thinks he's smarter than Batman, but because it wouldn't be any fun without him. Dreadlock Joker refuses to let anyone other than himself beat Batman, going out of his way to protect Batman's secret identity at one point because the right to take down the Bat belongs to him and him alone. The Clown Prince of Crime, chaos and order, comedy and tragedy, good and evil. And now, it is time. My ideal version of Batman himself. Batman is a detective, a martial artist, and a hero. He is, by every conceivable definition of the word, the most competent human being on the planet. A genius with peak mental and physical discipline with the necessary resources to wage his one-man war on crime. And unfortunately, not every version of the character gets that. Now, many of you would pick Kevin Conroy's Batman, otherwise known as the Timverse Batman, as your ideal version. And you're right. Rest in peace. The Timverse Batman is the best. However, not every version of him is great. Honestly, after rewatching Batman the Animated Series, his Batman kinda sucks sometimes. He struggles to fight normal dudes, the plot of individual episodes are really hit or miss, and he hasn't quite perfected the voice. Season 3, controversial art style change aside, is when Kevin's Batman really comes together, and is the version that was used for Young Justice and Batman Beyond. But isn't it the same character? No, it ain't. Season 1 and 2, Bruce Wayne behaves much goofier in public, like he's putting on an act. Which he is, to be clear. Season 3, Bruce Wayne acts much more like Batman. He's stern, intense, and disciplined. And I like that. Justice League Batman loses fights too, but it's usually against superpowered foes rather than just gangsters. He almost dies by getting bitten by Copperhead, and Batman just shrugs it off and keeps working after he receives treatment. A nuclear bomb is headed for a populated island, so he pilots a javelin from space, risks burning up on re-entry to catch up to the missile, then magnetizes it to the javelin and diverts it to the ocean. And in the end, he survives, but is severely wounded. This is a version of Batman who isn't unbeatable, but he is unbreakable. He will never quit, no matter the circumstances. But he's not without mercy. We all know the clip of Batman sitting on the swing with Ace, but there are other examples of him showing compassion to his enemies. He comforts Baby Doll, understanding that her body's inability to age has shattered her mentally. He pays for cosmetic surgery for Two-Face to ease the burden of his split personality. Batman cares about the people he's fighting, because he believes that if things in Gotham were better, these people never would have turned out this way. With a few notable exceptions. I do also want to shout out the Batman's Batman. This version of the character is less broken than the Timverse's Batman. In many iterations, Batman is the true personality and Bruce Wayne is the mask. Bruce died in the alley with his parents and Batman was born. That's not the case for this Bruce. He makes jokes, smiles, messes up his personal life and responsibilities, but when the cowl comes on, things change. There is a clear separation between Bruce Wayne and the Batman in this show. There are few Batmen whose presence carry as much weight as this one. We get to see him be smart from an intellectual level and an investigative one. Sure, this Batman gets tossed around on occasion, but that's by people with super strength or skilled fighters in their own right. But even if someone beats Batman in this show, by the end of each episode we see Batman overcome every trial. Also, his cape is completely impractical and I love it. Look at this man aura farm! The main thing dragging down this version is the show he's in. Season 1 is almost a pure detective show. Episode 1 starts on the 3-year anniversary of Batman's war on crime, and Gotham is declared the country's safest city, but then supercriminals, the likes of which Gotham has never seen before, begin to appear, and the city takes a turn for the worst. Bruce has to use every tool available to him to step up his game and take on the bad guys. Then the show decides to give him a funny sidekick in Season 2, a second one in Season 3, then Season 4 is just Batman and his amazing friends. Why was it trying to do this when Justice League Unlimited was still running? I'll never understand. In the end, my ideal Batman is kind of a fusion of the Timverse and The Batman. The show would be focused on a detective angle, making Batman figure out the crime before he stops it. Cape Crusader does this for the most part, but this show's Batman is too angry. That Batman is clearly going through a character arc, and my ideal Batman doesn't have one. In my eyes, Batman is a flat character. No, not a boring one, a flat character. He went through his arc before the show began, and is using the lessons he's learned to try and better the world around him. My Batman would dig down to the root of crime in Gotham before playing the long game to fix the city. He'd put out fires as necessary, but he'd more so be playing a game of chess with the criminal gangs of Gotham, slowly but surely bringing them into his endgame for checkmate. Characters like Joker, Riddler, and Mr. Freeze would be interruptions to the chess game. People with personal vendettas that Batman has to intervene in to protect the citizens of Gotham. Robin and Batwoman would be people Batman inspired and fight alongside him because they believe in his mission. Gordon and Yin would be steadfast allies, cops that people can look up to and have hope that not everyone in power is in pockets of the gangs. Heroes without masks that take on the corrupted system from the inside, proving it can be beaten. The war on evil is a war without end, because so long as people have free will, there will be some who use it to hurt others. But there are those who will use their free will to protect others and build a better world than the one they grew up in. Hope isn't something that others can take from you. Only you get to decide when it's gone. And Batman is determined to never let hope die. That's the kind of hero he is. Thanks for listening.
Cracky.